Navigating decision makers for faster lead conversion. Why leads stall when you miss the real decision makers? If your pipeline looks healthy, but closed won is lagging, the issue often isn't product market fit, it's access and alignment. In modern B2B, you can run great outreach, book solid meetings, and still lose momentum because you're anchored to a nice contact who can't actually drive a decision. Faster lead conversion starts when we treat decision-maker navigation as the core work, not a late-stage cleanup step. This challenge is bigger than most teams admit. Gartner estimates complex B2B purchases typically involve 6 to 10 decision-makers, and Forrester puts the average closer to 13, with 89% of purchases spanning 2 or more departments. That's why selling to the decision maker is the wrong mental model. You're selling into a buying group with competing goals, different risk tolerances, and uneven authority. Meanwhile, buyers are stingy with attention. Gartner's research shows prospects spend only about 17% of their buying time meeting with all suppliers combined, so every interaction has to earn its spot. If we want an outbound motion that works in this environment, we need a repeatable way to map stakeholders, multi-thread outreach, and guide internal consensus, especially when we're operating as a cold calling agency or SDR agency responsible for creating pipeline at scale. How buying committees decide and why it feels slow. Buying committees don't move slowly because they're indecisive, they move slowly because they're coordinating. Each function evaluates the same purchase through a different lens. Finance wants predictability, security wants control, operators want adoption, and executives want outcomes. When you only engage one role, you're effectively betting that person can win every internal argument for you. Add in shifting buyer preferences, and the bar gets even higher. In a Gartner-cited buyer survey, 61% said they prefer an overall rep-free experience, and 73% actively avoid suppliers that send irrelevant outreach. Translation: you get fewer live conversations, so the conversations you do get must be specific to the stakeholder's job, priorities, and constraints, especially in outbound programs run by a B2B sales agency or outbound sales agency where performance is measured week to week. The silent killer is internal friction. Gartner found 74% of buyer teams show unhealthy conflict during the decision process, while teams that reach consensus are 2.5 times more likely to report a high-quality deal. If we don't help the account align internally, we'll experience great call, then went dark, even when the problem is real and the timing is right. Map the buying group before you ever pitch. Decision-maker mapping should be a pre-call requirement, not a nice-to-have. Before we send the first email or place the first dial, we spend 5 to 10 minutes building a hypothesis. Who owns budget? Who runs the process? Who will use the solution? And who can veto it? LinkedIn, the company website, and good list-building services are usually enough to identify likely roles. Data tools can help confirm titles and reporting lines, but the key is thinking in roles, not just names. We recommend capturing at least 3 stakeholder types in your CRM from day one: an economic buyer, budget authority, a champion, day-to-day operator, and at least one risk stakeholder, IT, security, procurement, or legal, depending on your category. The common mistake is over-indexing on a single director-level contact because they reply first. That's how deals become single-threaded and fragile, especially when you later hit procurement, security review, or exec approval. From there, messaging has to be role-specific. Economic buyers respond to outcomes, ROI, and risk management. Operators respond to workflow pain and time saved. Technical stakeholders respond to integrations, data handling, and support expectations. This is where a strong cold email agency motion pairs well with an SDR playbook. One account, multiple value angles, and outreach designed to be forwarded internally without requiring a rep to explain it on a call. Multi-thread early and track time to power. Most teams wait to multi-thread until the deal stalls, which is exactly when it's hardest to expand. Flip that habit. Within 10 business days of the first qualified meeting, aim to engage at least 2 additional stakeholders in different functions. This protects you if your champion changes roles, accelerates internal evaluation, and keeps the opportunity from hinging on one person's calendar. To make this operational, we like one simple KPI: time to power. Track how many days it takes from the first positive response to getting a VP, C-level, or true budget owner in the thread or on a call. Teams that reduce time to power naturally tighten discovery, write more relevant emails, and run smarter call blocks. Outcomes that matter whether you're building in-house or working with sales outsourcing and an outsourced sales team. The biggest execution mistake is confusing activity with progress. More touches to the same person isn't multi-threading, and more meetings with low-authority roles doesn't equal momentum. Multi-threading means deliberate expansion into the roles that influence adoption, risk, and budget, because those are the conversations that determine whether the buying group can align fast enough to buy. Your SDRs aren't closing the deal on a cold call, they're launching the internal conversation inside the account. Reach executives without wasting touches. Cold outreach still works, but the math is unforgiving. Benchmarks show cold call conversion rates around 2 to 3%, and it takes roughly 8 call attempts on average to connect with a prospect or decision maker. That's why one-and-done dialing, or a light cadence that never escalates toward power, quietly caps your pipeline, no matter how good the script is. We like using email for breadth and the phone for depth. Email helps you map and warm multiple stakeholders quickly. Calling is where you build influence with the handful of people who can move budget and urgency. A good B2B cold calling services motion uses structured call blocks, focuses on key titles, and routes high-intent signals, replies, forwards, meeting interest, into deeper phone follow-up instead of burning dials on low-value contacts. Just as important, outreach must be value-dense. When 73% of buyers avoid irrelevant outreach, generic quick question language becomes a liability. The practical standard we use is simple. Every touch should either validate a real initiative, teach something specific, or make the next internal step easier, especially when pairing calling with LinkedIn outreach services to reach stakeholders who prefer asynchronous channels. Prevent ghosting by facilitating internal consensus. Even strong deals die when the account can't align internally. When 74% of buyer teams experience unhealthy conflict, you should assume the default state is misalignment. Mismatched priorities, unclear ownership, and competing definitions of success. The seller who wins is often the one who helps the account make the decision easier, not the one who delivers the flashiest demo. A practical way to do this is to co-create a lightweight decision roadmap during discovery. What needs to be true for each function to say yes, who needs to weigh in, and when. This is also where you arm your champion. Give them a simple narrative and a 2 to 3 slide summary they can forward to leadership. When the message is easy to circulate internally, your deal doesn't depend on you getting another meeting during that tiny 17% window buyers spend with suppliers. Common mistakes show up here: relying on one enthusiastic user as the buyer, avoiding procurement security until the end, or treating silence as a follow-up problem instead of an alignment problem. If internal consensus is the true bottleneck, the fix is multi-threading plus shared success metrics, not just checking in emails. Operationalize the motion with benchmarks and a simple system. Once you accept that committees decide, you can build a system that reliably navigates them. The goal isn't more activity. It's higher quality coverage across the buying group, faster time to power, and consistent expansion into risk and budget roles. This is where a sales development agency mindset helps. Define what good looks like, measure it weekly, and coach to the gaps. Multi-threading is one of the clearest leverage points. Gong found that for deals over $50K, multi-threaded opportunities can have win rates up to 130% higher than single-threaded deals, while Cognism reports a 36% win rate lift from multi-threading and a 546% increase when moving from 1 to 4 engaged contacts. Those gains don't come from luck, they come from process. Who you target, how you sequence, and how quickly you expand beyond the first friendly reply. The takeaway for teams evaluating cold calling companies or cold calling services is straightforward. You want a partner or internal process that can consistently build buying group coverage, not just book a single meeting. When you measure the right things, like time to power and number of engaged functions, you turn navigating decision makers into something you can scale and coach. Next steps. Build a repeatable playbook for faster lead conversion. A practical playbook starts with 3 non-negotiables. Map the buying group before outreach, multi-thread early, and run interactions that help the account align internally. That approach is what turns Outbound from more dials and emails into a system that converts qualified leads faster, whether you run it in-house, outsource sales, or augment with an outsourced B2B sales partner. At SalesHive, decision-maker navigation is exactly where we've learned Outbound either wins or breaks. Since 2016, we've booked 100,000-plus meetings for 1,500-plus B2B clients by combining US-based SDR teams with an AI-powered outbound platform built to reach real stakeholders, not random contacts. Our approach blends structured calling, because it often takes 8+ attempts to connect, with role-specific email personalization designed to avoid the irrelevant noise that 73% of buyers say they actively dodge. If you want faster lead conversion in 2025, the win isn't a clever template or a louder dialer. It's a disciplined system that gets you to power quickly, keeps you covered across functions, and helps the account reach consensus. Whether you're evaluating a cold calling agency, a B2B sales agency, or broader sales outsourcing, prioritize the team that can prove they build multi-threaded opportunities and guide internal alignment, because that's what actually closes.